I'm just a local liberal nerd, but it has never been a better time to get into comics. I've worked in a variety of comic book stores and bookstores and have answered the question of how to get into comic books a plethora of times. So if you were to walk into a store today, and I was working there today, January 13th, 2026, and you asked me, how do I get into comic books? This is how I would answer that question. Before I get into specific titles and books, I'm gonna get some general tips and advice and terms out of the way so that we are all on the same page. I'm gonna start with describing the kind of books and things you will see when you walk into a physical comic book store. To describe that, I'm just gonna use the clip from my How to Get Into Comic Books of 2025 last year of that like 1 minute clip, because the definitions of these words haven't changed. That's also much better edited than this is gonna be. So yeah, I'll let that roll first.
Find comics in one of 4 forms. The first is single issues or floppies. This is the entry point that you will see the most of, either with the new hotness on the shelves or back issue boxes. Floppies also usually have a handful of different covers for the same book, but the guts of the book is always the same. A variation of floppies are zines, a small circulation self-published indie comic or art book that are made of paper and reproduced with a photocopier. Next, we have the trade paperback / hardcover, or commonly known as a graphic novel. These collections consist of one story, whether it's an arc in a creative run or a complete miniseries. If floppies are a chapter in a book, this is the book. Finally, we have the omnibus or compendiums. If I'm continuing my metaphor from earlier, these massive, pretty, pricey hardcovers are whole series box sets, or a quarter if it's a really long run.
So that's what you'll see when you walk into a comic book store. Now I can hear you asking, what if I don't have a local comic book store, or the nearest local comic book store is an over 30-minute drive away, and it's just not feasible to go there on a weekly basis to get your comics? Well, luckily, the internet exists. There's a bunch of virtual retailers. Midtown Comics is the first one that comes to mind. I've also heard ECGCE also has a solid virtual pull service from what I've heard. But also, shipping costs can be expensive. So if you just want to read the books, you don't want a physical collection, because the 7 short boxes in my closet can attest, you might not always have the room in your place, and that's perfectly valid. But like everything in our modern world, there is a streaming service for comic books. Marvel and DC both have their own streaming services. In Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe Infinite, I think I got that name right. I'll put the right name if it's not correct. And their prices vary, with Marvel Unlimited having a base $9.99 a month, and then DC has 2 different tiers of like $7.99 a month, but you get the comics 6 months after release, and then there's a like premium $11.99 tier where you get comics at like a month after they come out. And Marvel Unlimited is a blanket, like you wait 3 months to get the comics. And if you're looking for just raw content of getting into things, these are probably the best deal that you will find. The only caveat is that, like most subscription services, they're like gym memberships, in that you really get what you put into it. If you do a lot of work and you do a lot of reading, then you will get more than your value's worth out of that. And also specifically for Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe Infinite, they are always doing deals throughout the year, particularly around conventions or movie release times. So watch out for those. You can get them even cheaper. I got my little 1-year subscription for Marvel Unlimited at Comic-Con when I worked there, but they make those deals public to everyone. If you're looking for comics outside of Marvel or DC, there's also Comixology Unlimited for just general, and there's also Global Comics Unlimited for just kind of outside of Marvel and DC comic subscription service, because there's more than superheroes in comics. It's really awesome. With the boom in comics, there's also been a boom in non-superhero comics. I'm just gonna kind of put this little thing up right here for specific titles. I know I said I'd wait for specific titles, but I'm in that flow state, and this is where we're flowing in that state, so I'm just gonna keep that up there. Yeah. Pause to read if any of these interest you, and then I'm gonna move on. Going back to my more general tips, some of these are gonna be a bit repetitive from my 2025 video, so I'll try not to linger on them too long. But one of my first ones I always give to people is follow creators, not characters. For example, I got into comics with Scott Snyder's Batman run, the current writer of Absolute Batman, which I'll touch the Absolute Batman beast in a bit. But through Scott Snyder's work, I was able to get into other stuff like his horror series, White Boat, and House of the Ghoul, as well as just some of the other superhero stuff he's written. He's also written recently with the Batman-Deadpool crossover, which I'll also go into. He co-wrote with James Tynion a like Doctor Strange and Constantine book, which I initially wouldn't have thought to look at for characters, but oh, I trust this creator's work, so I'd go through and stuff like that. It's a great way to help diversify your palette in regards to getting into a bunch of things rather than sticking to a character where quality can vary depending from creative run to creative run. My next bit of advice is to start small. Pick a character, pick a creator, and just go from there. Don't worry about big, massive events. Not only because quality in those can vary wildly, they also require generally a lot of homework or reading other books to fully get what's going on in the event, as events are usually culminations of kind of months of random different varying storylines. If what you're reading happens to lead in or tie into an event, that's completely different. You'll at least have that on-ramp through the book that you're reading, but otherwise start small and then branch out from there. Next off, for as intimidating all of these terms and getting into something new can be, there is no wrong way to collect. Whether you collect single issues, whether you just wait for trades to come out, whether you just read virtually, there is no tiers of collector that makes you a better or worse collector, a better or worse comic reader. As long as you are having fun, that is the most important thing. The only problem is that you're not having fun, or if you're not being responsible in how you're collecting, financially at least. If you are overspending, spending outside of your means, or spending way too much on very pretty comic book covers, which leads to my next point. Comic books are not a stock market. It might be very easy to seem with like grading and also just all of the whatnot hype for trading card games and comics. Ignore those. Put blinders onto those. Just enjoy things to the best of your ability and do not collect with the hope of this is going to be worth money someday. Collect because it brings you joy. With the current state of the economic climate, it really feels that a lot of hobbies have this kind of pressure on them that you need to get your money's worth back out of it as almost an investment of like, oh, if I want to get out of this hobby, I can resell out of it in regards to the Pokemon and Magic the Gathering boom. Like with most hobbies, just recognize that it's a sunk cost for my entertainment and my enjoyment, and that's okay. And if every so often something I get spikes in value, great. Again, for example, for Absolute Batman, it can be really easy to get stuck in the hype of like, I want the first printing of this, or you want these really fancy covers that there's a lot of hype behind. All of these kinds of things happened with the Donny Cates Venom run in 2018 with the debut of Null that even ended up making it to a movie, and it's a few years later after all of that, and if you really want the first appearance, first printing of Null, it's $100, which is a lot of money, do not get me wrong, but nowhere near some of the prices it was asking for at that time. My FOMO and scalping point, never pay scalper prices, never pay FOMO prices, never pay very, very high resale prices. Going back into physical deals, DC Compact Comics and the Marvel Premiere Series are still the best deals in physical comics right now, just as they were last year. What DC Compact Comics and Marvel Premiere Series are basically giant collections of issues or massive stories. You get the whole story for usually $10 to $15. It's $10 for DC, it's $15 for Marvel. The Marvel ones haven't been as far as I understand, haven't been selling as great at the $15 mark, so a lot of them have been marked down closer to 10. I recommend trying to get them closer to 10. It's why I just have the DC Compact Comics, because they're consistently 10. And if I can get them for lower, for like 9 or 8, even better. But yeah, this is about like $1 an issue, basically, for some of these. For example, this contains the New 52 Batman 1 through 11, 11 issues of comics for $10. That is about $1 an issue. You're not gonna find anything like that. Even like the trade paperbacks for both of these together, because it's 2 volumes of Batman in this whole saga, would probably run you about $30 to get those for both trade paperbacks. So the fact that you can just get this all for $10, specifically Court of the Owls, if I were to lose all my collection, like all of everything, my memories of all the comics I've ever read, if I had to start from ground zero and I only had $10, I'd get this one specifically. But you've got a whole bunch of options, right? I've got Wonder Woman, Watchmen, DC Kingdom Come, Batman Hush. I recently got the Batman Long Halloween one, and with both DC and Marvel, they are constantly releasing more of these. So if you don't particularly care about getting into like the new stuff, getting on the ground floor, cutting edge as that stuff comes out, you want to read some of the classics, these are great things to look out for, because they are constantly releasing more of them, because as far as I understand, they're doing great. So these are also for physical. If you just want to like give a story a shot, give these a read. Finally, I'm going to get into my series buyer guide. If I were to go into the comic book store starting this next next week's New Comic Book Day. For reference, new comics come out on Wednesdays. So for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, if you were to walk into that comic book store, this is what I'd recommend you get over this and then that next week. So if you go the 21st and 28th, this is what I'd recommend you get to at least get a nice smorgasbord of where you're starting from. Because, again, I'm talking about all this Absolute Batman hype and everything going on with that. Absolute Batman #1 is getting a 10th printing. A 10th printing, it's just being reprinted. The only difference in the cover is that the symbol on the logo is red rather than the original black, but the innards of the comic are the exact same. So if you want the feeling of reading that physical comic, or you've heard all of this Absolute Batman hype and you want to kind of just dive into it, it's MSRP of $5. If you want to get any of the fancy variants associated with it, a little bit more. Additionally, there's also going to be a second print of the highly acclaimed Absolute Batman Annual #1, which is a different creative team than the normal Absolute Batman book. Absolute Batman, Scott Snyder. The annual is Daniel Warren Johnson. Both phenomenal books, by the way. Both great. And both easy starting points of they'll be there, you can pick them up. Again, those slight differences, and you can get them right at the store. Additionally, Captain America issue #6. It's the start of a new storyline for Captain America specifically in this current run that is leading into Marvel's Armageddon event in the fall. Now you're probably wondering, what about issues 1 through 5? Well, that brings me into next week, January 28th, 2026, where issues 1 through 5 are all getting their third or second printings respectively. So if you go and pick up #6, you hold on to it, you go back, that next week, you can get the first 5 issues, because I believe the trade paperback for that hasn't been released yet, but you can get those first 5 issues. They'll all be blue. They'll say like 5 months to Armageddon on top. And I personally think it's a great jumping on point for just Captain America as a character currently as well. Chip Zdarsky is a phenomenal writer. The art is phenomenal as well. And it's just a very simple, sort of like all you really need to know is it's Captain America getting out of the ice, and it's a kind of like flashback-esque story as he's in the United States military attempting to help them get Doom out of power in Latveria. Additionally, on the 28th, the second printing of DC's Batman Deadpool #1, not to be confused with Marvel's Deadpool Batman. It's a whole thing. Don't ask. Just all you need to know is this one. It's got the Jorge Jimenez cover of the Batpool. It's $8, and it's got a variety of different short stories. The Scott Snyder Tinian Constantine Doctor Strange story I mentioned earlier is in this issue as well. Outside of just the Batman Deadpool story, it's got a lot of different stories for a bunch of different characters that can give you kind of different offshoot directions you can go in. Additionally, outside of these comics that I'm mentioning, if you buy all the comics I just mentioned, it averages out to about $60, which is what a AAA video game used to cost in ye old age of 2023. God, that hurts to say. Editing Max here. I also forgot for January 28th, Joshua Williamson's Iron Man #1 comes out. It's a fresh start. Joshua Williamson, incredible writer. He had some great runs on The Flash. He's also the current writer of Superman. So that's also just a great starting point. If you love Iron Man as a character, I recommend that as well. But if you want to throw in some other stuff there, Infernal Hulk #1 also gets reprinted on the 21st. And Infernal Hulk #3 comes out on the 28th, so you could just ask your store about getting the second issue or adding any of these books to a pull list. If you consistently want to get a comic or you've got work and you can't immediately go in on Wednesday, that's what pull lists are for. Pull lists are basically a running pre-order with a comic book store for specific issues. As long as you keep setting aside an issue of this series for me, I will buy it from you and I'll come in. Even if it's not on Wednesday, I will come in and pick it up. And you can talk to your local store about setting one of those up. Some stores have discounts for their associated pull lists, which is even more of a reason to do it and just have that consistent running thing. So then you don't have to think about it. So in case a book does spike in value in whatever you're reading for whatever reason, you're not screwed out of it and you got to worry about it's just, nope, it'll be there, set aside, safe for you, and you can pick it up whenever. But do your best to try and pick it up on average within the week that it comes out. Or if you need to wait longer or you need to take anything off of your pull list, just communicate with your store so they don't overorder and then are stuck with those books that you're not going to pick up or that then they got put on shelf that they don't have an immediate buyer for. As for just general etiquette, communication is key in regards to that stuff. But One thing I haven't mentioned is Marvel's Ultimate Universe, along with just some other different books. If none of those above issues sound particularly interesting, some other recommendations I'd have is that the Ultimate Universe for Marvel is coming to an end in April, which means they're starting to get all of the trades out for that. You're probably not going to find single issues for some of the earlier issues. I'd highly, at that point, recommend the trades. For the Ultimate Universe specifically, they released like a box set that MSRPs for $120 that has like the inciting event of the Ultimate Universe and the first trade paperback of each of the initial Ultimate books. And it's $120, but for a lot of places you can find it cheaper. I think I saw on one store it was like $70, which I think is a great deal for that many trades. It looks nice on your shelf. Additionally, the trade paperbacks for the first volumes of most of DC's Absolute line is out, with the second volume trade paperbacks coming out soon. So even if you're watching this later in the year, like after this, the Absolute Batman #1 10th print is sold out, which it wouldn't surprise me if we get an 11th print or further prints at this point for those #1s for the Absolute books. But if we do not get more prints for those books, just pick up the trade paperbacks and you will be able to get that same physical reading experience. Additionally, I also highly recommend Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez's Batman run. It is a very back to basics run where each issue is its own standalone thing. So you don't even gotta go find #1 or find the trades. It's just pick up an issue and go from there, and they're all generally meant to be standalones with slight overarching arcs, which is really exciting, and I'm really glad that that exists. Even later editing Max with early morning bedhead and editing assistant Cat and everything. Literally as I'm recording this, I was about to press publish. Marvel and DC just announced their next wave of crossovers. It's going to be Spider-Man, Superman. DC's Superman, Spider-Man is going to be out at the end of March 25th. And Marvel's Spider-Man, Superman is going to be out in April at some point. They haven't given a specific Wednesday, but in April. Again, like the Deadpool Batman, those are great starting points. And yes, the Marvel and the DC ones are two separate books with two separate creators. I hate it. It's confusing too, but they're great starting points, even though they're later. So if you're watching this later in the year, just so that's useful information for you. So yeah, just check in with your comic book store. Like with everything else, ask your comic book store. Also ask them for recommendations too. I'm sure they have great recommendations. I forgot to mention that. Okay, yeah, it's been about a minute. Back to your regularly scheduled program. If you've got a few dollars in your pocket, those are the comics that I'd recommend you start with. Just make sure to shop responsibly. Hopefully this was of some help to you. If this was useful, I'd really appreciate either like, subscribe, engagement. It helps me know that these kinds of things are fun. Yeah, stick around. Glad to have you here, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.